Welcome everyone to the there you go Friday edition of the Pat and Mike Show. Is the owner of the Probate Pro. He'll get into that in a minute. Essentially in our world, we're talking a lot about probate. A lot of times families come to us. One of their main goals is avoiding probate. So we're going to dive a little bit into what that looks like, how Darren can help if you end up there. A couple things I want to touch on before we get rolling, and then we'll hand it over to Darren, is we still have the 50% off going. Governor just apparently lifted the stay-at-home order, so this could be the last episode that we're still running that special. So if you know anyone who hasn't done their estate planning, needs an update, whatever the case may be, have to give us a call. Other thing that we're still doing, because there's still frontline responders out there working every day. I know my wife is still swabbing for COVID, and there's so many people out there still, be in a high-risk situation. We're offering free powers of attorney, financial healthcare powers of attorney, just as a thank you. So now I'm going to turn it over to Darren. Darren, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and we'll get going.
Outstanding. So thanks, guys. And my name is Darren Findling, got a multi-state probate and trust law firm. We're based out of Royal Oak, Michigan, but we're present in Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, and Florida, handling probate and trust-related issues, primarily with people who have died and those who are incapacitated, addressing their issues within the probate court, litigating and administering both probate and trust estates. So we love this area of work. We're really passionate about growing a successful, thriving business in our community and the communities upon which we serve. And I'm really thrilled to talk to you guys everything about probate, because I know so much of what you do on behalf of your clients is help them avoid probate, to avoid and plan to avoid probate. And those that go through the process, I have the pleasure of working with.
And that's kind of what we were talking about beforehand is, ideally, if somebody, if they work with us and we do our job right, or, they work with somebody else who's set things up properly, they probably won't need to come work with you. But if they do, thank God there's somebody out there like you to handle things. So if you would just share with people, we all know this word probate, we've all heard it, but what is probate? What does that word mean? It's everything from guardianship to who gets your stuff, Well,
I'm glad you asked that, Pat. You basically threw me a softball that I'm willing to hit out of the park. Let's talk about what probate is not. Probate is not probation. And so often people will call us because they have probation questions, which involve the criminal court. Probate is not pro bono, which is a legal concept upon which you're offering services to the community at a free or reduced rate. Although we do pro bono work, that is not what probate means. Probate is a court, and that court handles a variety or has jurisdiction over a variety of matters. That includes probate estates, when somebody has died, the orderly distribution of their assets and liabilities through this process called probate. It involves matters that may go in front of the probate court relating to a trust that has specific issues. Maybe there's a dispute within the trust that needs to be adjudicated by the court, or maybe the trust mandates court supervision, and it handles guardianship, care and well-being of individuals, and conservatorship when an individual can't manage their finances. So those are the general things. There are other things that fall under the jurisdiction of the probate court, but that's in a nutshell, what we're talking about when we use the term probate.
So would it be, and you can correct me, I may be right or wrong on this one. When people ask me about probate, I always say that probate court is designed to answer two questions. Those questions are who owns something and who controls something. And it seems like almost every probate matter comes down to that. Do I own this? Do I control it? Is it if it's a child, control is probably not the best word, but that's the guardianship side of things. If if you pass away and you leave property, the question is who owns it. But if you're alive and not competent, the question is, well, not who owns it, you do, but who's in control. The court would figure that out.
Yeah, and historically, well before probate courts existed, in communities and in faraway lands, these types of issues would be resolved by an elder or a committee within, whether it was a tribal community or whether it was in a local community. But as we developed our court system, we created these jurisdictions, this probate court, to be this place to resolve certain disputes and issues. One thing I will kind of help maybe break a misconception to so many who may be listening here today is that often people think, hey, I've got a will. I went in, on a website, I found a will, or a neighbor handed me a document and I filled it out and I had a will. Don't I avoid probate? And the answer is no. Probate is the orderly administration, even with a will, with or without a will. So to avoid the necessity of going to me, you have to work with an effective, competent, skilled estate planning lawyer to do the probate avoidance techniques that will avoid the time and necessity of using my office to go through probate. And I know you spoke at the beginning about providing certain planning documents, which I think is just beautiful that you're doing that for those people who qualify, as well as a discount. What a great investment to upfront be able to dictate and control how your estate is going to be administered, avoid the probate court altogether, and be able to designate who is going to be making decisions regarding how things will take place. That's why we do effective estate planning. And if you don't, you're leaving it to the statutes that are behind me here that dictate how all this is going to occur. A judge that doesn't know you or your family who's going to make those decisions. So boy, if you had a choice between leaving it to that book back there and a judge that you don't know and being able to hire an effective estate planning attorney, it seems like a pretty easy choice.
It really does.
I think you should come hang out in our office a little bit more.
I'm ready. I'm ready to be there. And what we recognize is that we could talk about planning a lot. And some people will heed that advice, but some don't. Some don't know how to do it. They don't understand it. They're fearful of discussions about mortality. They're sensitive to the fact that they have to maybe tell a child that they don't want that child to receive as much as another. They have to confront very emotional, painful issues. So some people don't plan, and they end up working with my office, and we get to deliver great quality legal services in a manner that we hope really allows people to feel with dignity and empowerment and financially appropriate to guide them through the process when they haven't planned appropriately.
Gotcha. So I do not mean this, and I don't think you'll take this the wrong way, but it does seem that if people wind up working with you, that a ball has been dropped, a mistake has been made. If they're working with you, it means that there was something that could have been done in the past to alleviate that. It's not to say that it's a bad thing. Firefighters are there to put out the fire. We love them. They're there to solve that issue. But you really wish the house hadn't caught fire in the first place. And it kind of seems like that's your role, is like when things are going sideways, yeah, you want somebody who knows how to handle it, but you'd rather it didn't in the first place.
Yeah, and in fact, I think, Patrick, you're right. If everybody planned effectively and appropriately, you'd probably put me out of business. I wouldn't be enforced.
We're working on it.
As a growing law firm, I'd end up, I got this hat here near me. I'd end up like Blockbuster when Netflix showed up and put Blockbuster out of business after Blockbuster existed. Because there's a better way. So let's get back to this concept, Patrick, to your point. A power of attorney. If you have an effective, appropriately drafted power of attorney, then there would probably be no need for a conservator. If you have drafted an effective patient advocacy, probably will never need to go to probate court and have the court involved in your life in a guardianship. Mm-hmm. And further, if you have appropriately planned and done the probate avoidance techniques that your office and our office and other offices that do this work, you wouldn't be needing to go through probate. You'd be privately addressing those issues without court and government intervention. And I think most people find that a compelling reason to do planning. But we also recognize that many people don't. They still don't. And when they don't, we're going to be there available to them to be able to deliver outstanding legal work for the work that we do.
Well, absolutely. And that's kind of, I mean, why we've worked together in the past, is that we would rather people didn't have to face those issues, but if they do, we want it handled, head on by somebody who knows what they're doing there. To my mind, and correct me because you spend a lot more time these days in the courtroom than I do, a lot of it comes down to who is granting the authority. With a trust, with a power of attorney, medical or financial, what you're doing with that is you're saying, this person, trust this other person to handle these decisions for me. And so that's a private agreement with the two of them. Where you get involved is where someone comes in and says, hey, judge, a court, the state, you come in, give me authority over that person. And that's a really different relationship.
Yeah, so there's all sorts of reasons that we may end up in the probate court, even when planning documents exist. Mm-hmm. There could be a time that the person in charge, we call that person a fiduciary. They have a legal fiduciary responsibility on behalf of managing that person's affairs.
And Darren, sorry, I'm cutting you off just because what does that word mean? I hear it all the time. I hear it from lawyers, from financial. What is a fiduciary?
Yeah, so a fiduciary is a status. It's a relationship between two people.
Okay.
And it is a type of responsibility upon which duties arise. So if I'm the fiduciary, if I'm the guardian, for example, of an elderly person, I have a fiduciary responsibility. I have a duty to provide and ensure that they're well clothed, fed, house or suitable housing. Their medication is being provided. These are part of the body of duties upon which I am obligated when I agree to serve in that role. We call that term a fiduciary. Now, when somebody has died, that fiduciary duty, those duties may change. They would be different. Rather than providing housing and clothing and food and compassionate care, you have a fiduciary duty to administer the financial affairs of that individual. So we call that general term a fiduciary role, which means you are responsible for certain duties on behalf of another individual. And often, times that bring us into litigation at the probate court are when that fiduciary is doing something bad. Maybe they're not performing their role correctly. Maybe they're not giving notice. So sometimes people become the trustee, for example, of a trust, and they go, wow, I've got the power. And then they stop informing the beneficiaries, or they do their role according to the law incorrectly. Those are times that may bring us to the court for the court to intervene and adjudicate those issues and those identify whether the fiduciary is performing their role correctly.
But never you, Darren, right? Certainly never you.
So we serve as fiduciary.
Okay.
Many people. We serve as personal representative, conservator, guardian, trustee on behalf of many people. And we take this responsibility very seriously because we are under the scrutiny of the state bar. We're under the scrutiny of the statute books and the courts and the family upon which we've been empowered to perform that role. We take this responsibility not just from our head, but also from our heart to ensure that we're delivering a great legal and fiduciary responsibility. And we don't look at it just like a file or a piece of paper, but a responsibility upon which we should put our heart and soul and mind into performing that role. And that's why somebody's named a trustee, for example, in a trust, or a power of attorney, or a patient advocate in your estate planning documents. You want the person you're nominating to care deeply about that responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's one of those things, and I know Mike and I talk about this all the time. It comes up in the firm a lot, is you can have somebody who has the best will, the best intentions, you know, they want to do the right thing, but they've never done this before. You know, how many times are you going to do this in your personal life as opposed to in your professional life, where any of the three of us, you know, it's a daily kind of thing, where for an awful lot of people, you know, not only is it, hey, this is the first time I've ever done this, but I'm doing it for a spouse, a parent, a sibling, like the emotional weight that goes along with that too. I mean, there is something, I think, to be said for the distance, you know, to be like, hey, you know what? We'll handle this. You deal with what you need to with the family right now. And I think that's what you do an awful lot, is say, look, we'll take care of the paperwork. We'll make sure, you know, the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, because you have much more important things to deal with right now.
I think that's a fair point, Patrick. And what I would express is that when people are deciding whether to use a family member or a professional like me in that role, we usually start with the family member. We assess, does a family member make sense? Will they be able to perform the role? Do they have the capacity to do so, the time, the energy, the sophistication? For example, if you're serving on behalf of somebody that has complicated financial affairs, and then you inject somebody into that role and they don't have the skill set to do so, it will overwhelm them. We all have enough difficulty managing our own lives. It's hard enough to wake up in the morning, put on your clothes, work all day, come home at night. Now imagine being told you don't have to do that for yourself. You have to do that for another person who has maybe a mental health issue, elderly, disabled, difficult personality, emotion. So these are complicated factors. So we want to really assess all of these factors to come up with whatever the best decision is relating to that individual. So it's not always family. It's not always a professional fiduciary. It's dependent upon the circumstances. But to your point, whoever you're going to nominate in your planning documents, you should be thinking about that. Who's going to be the most compassionate? Who's going to follow your wishes at the end of life when a decision needs to be made, a very emotional, difficult decision that may include withdrawing life support? Who's going to make the decisions regarding your financial affairs? Who do you want to nominate to handle your financial affairs in your, in the event you need with a power of attorney, and in the event that those financial matters need to be handled during your lifetime or after death? Who's best equipped to do so? So again, these are the decisions that I know that estate planning lawyers are counseling their clients about when decisions are being made and when family is struggling with deciding who should serve.
And I really appreciate you, addressing the issue of, like, how do you put your pants on in the morning? I mean, that's a challenging issue we all face. But who, I'm kind of thinking, who are the people who walk through your door? Because for us, predominantly, and Mike, correct me if you've had a different experience, the majority, not everybody, but probably 80+% of the people who come to us are because they know they need to get their house in order, as opposed to being in crisis, as opposed to being in chaos. We do have a good amount of that, but I think for us, it's 80-20 pre-planning versus stuff is off the rails. I'm pretty sure by the time they come to you, because I know 100% of the people we send your way, stuff's off the rails. I mean, is that accurate?
So that's true. And, one of the benefits of...
Yeah, I would.
Go ahead, Mike.
I would agree with that, Pat.
One of the things I'll say, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say that, so often family... Oh, I'm choppy. Go ahead.
Yeah, for some reason, your voice is chopping out sometimes, so I apologize for talking over you. Just to break some...
We all do it, Darren.
We talked about, you know, just taking care of our own affairs this morning. You know, I don't know if you can see this, but I couldn't even tuck my shirt in. You know, sometimes it's a challenge just to get out of bed, let alone even tuck my shirt in. I know during COVID-19, some people are doing these Zoom calls with shorts on. I at least got slacks on this morning.
Don't make me stand up.
That's right. So what I'm going to say about crisis, what we know is when people walk into our office, many of them are grieving, in crisis, post-accident brain injuries, mental health issues. And when I was young, although it caused a lot of pain, I grew up in a pretty crazy, wild household. A household where there was a lot of chaos and a lot of mental health issues and a lot of wildness. And as an adult, I understand that space. So I have a practice in which thousands of files we're managing and involved in, and many of them are people who come to us in just terribly sad situations. And we have to be prepared to meet them where they are to be able to help provide clear legal counsel. So we have to separate the emotion from our legal expertise and guide them, because usually it's emotion that's standing in the way of action. So we help them through that process.
And I need to ask, I think I know the answer on this one, but a lot of people are they're really scared to call a lawyer. They don't know what the hell's going on. Things are in chaos. They've lost a loved one. Someone was in an accident, something like this. And now they drop a dime to you, and all of a sudden you're going to blow them up for all kinds of billing, right? You're just going to start that clock going, and all of a sudden they'll have a bill that they didn't expect. I mean, that's not just hyperbole. I mean, that's a legitimate concern.
That would make me Blockbuster, which, remember when you'd get late fees if you were a day late?
Well,
Worse.
So here's the thing.
You maybe don't want to identify with that particular,
I've got a Netflix shirt over here, and sometimes you use the metaphor that Netflix recreated itself over and over again while Blockbuster doesn't exist anymore. Right. So what we learned by watching and being in this space is that most people need guidance, and we all day long are taking and fielding phone calls and providing people in the right direction relating to probate related issues. We don't charge anybody on these issues. We simply answer their question. They may need a form, they may need some guidance, they may need to know how to do something. And then those clients who need legal work done, we are very transparent about the expense and the time. People come to our office with this preconceived concern that probate is incredibly expensive and the court's going to take a percentage and everyone's going to take and take and take. And the cases that most of the people are familiar with are those that make the news. When Aretha Franklin passed away, when Prince died in Minneapolis, we hear these stories about how probate got involved. And probate in Michigan is a hurdle. It's something that needs to be done. And we're really good at doing it, and doing it in a cost-effective manner so that we can grow and create referral sources that trust upon us to do and deliver that great legal work. So no, when they call us, the clock doesn't start ticking. What starts ticking is our heart. We're going to help them, and we're going to put them in the right direction.
No, that's one of the things that I love about you, Darren, is that I feel very comfortable sending people to you, because you'll do that sort of frank, honest assessment of the situation. And there are some people who there really is a lot of work to be done. You know, you got to dig into it. And there's other people who aren't. But the thing that, to me, as an attorney, as an estate planning attorney who sees a lot of this, you don't make probate a boogeyman. Like, you're not out there pretending like probate is the end of the world and the government is going to come in and steal 95% of what you have. That's not, for most people, what probate is. Probate is to, you know, in my experience and to my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you have a lot more of it, it's slow, it's somewhat expensive, it's a nuisance, it's a pain in the neck. And it can certainly, if people are fighting, if there's creditors, it can definitely go very hard left. But for most people, it's much more of a burden and inconvenience than like the true nightmare that some people pretend it is. But why wouldn't we avoid, you know, the inconvenience, right?
Sure. And planning can avoid. We know that. And when people haven't planned, our job is to do it, go through probate with as least pain as possible in a cost-effective manner, orderly. We recognize that it's really difficult for people to do this on their own. The language is complicated. All the statutory requirements are foreign. It's not intuitive on what to do. And in fact, you talk to lawyers, you know, who are practicing in other areas. In the same way that I don't step in bankruptcy court or immigration court or other court, they don't want to step in probate court because they recognize that it is a specialized understanding and knowledge of that process. And we're just fortunate that we are entrusted with these referrals that allow us to have a lot of incredible human beings that work at this law firm to provide great legal services to guide people through that process. Michigan is actually a pretty effective, efficient state in handling and administering probate estates. We refer probate estates all over the country. We see what goes on in other states. It's really, really bad. So again, number one, avoid, plan and avoid. And when you have to go through probate, we will be there available to assist through that process.
And I'm sorry, I don't want to get into a legal technical issue, you know, as we're wrapping things up. But what you said right there is a profound scenario that we run into with an awful lot of people, where you say probate in other states. Well, you know, if I live in Michigan and I have property in Arizona, Carolina, Florida, if I die here, is the only probate I have Michigan, or do I open ancillary probate in literally every single state where I have a presence?
Yeah,
I think I know the answer.
You again threw a softball up. The word ancillary is a term that is really going to be foreign to most people. But in essence, in every state upon which real estate exists that you own, if you fail to properly plan, there may be a need to open up a probate estate in both Michigan as well as the state upon which the real estate exists. So, for example, right before this work we're doing here together, I was on an email involving that exact issue. Property in New York, probate estate here in Michigan. We're addressing the ancillary estate issues. Again, plan, plan, plan. And if you don't plan, we're going to be available to guide you through probate with compassion and with great human beings at this office delivering that service.
Mm-hmm. And for my mind, as well as Mike, and I know the rest of us there, that's part of what we love about you, is this is not something that we want to be doing day to day. I mean, quite candidly, it is intense. It is litigious. You wind up in court day to day, but God knows you want somebody standing next to you who understands, who represents, and who advocates for you in the way that you need it. So if people don't talk to us, or if we would never drop the ball on our end, but you know, if it did wind up, you know, that somebody needed that, you know, that's why we've worked together so closely over the years. And, you know, it's two sides of the coin. You know, ideally we never get to you, but if we do, you know, you want the right guy on your side.
Yeah, and you're giving 50% off. So, I mean, this is the money. And I'm going to argue that I get to do this again with you guys, because Mike's microphone has been lousy. I have
seriously, yeah.
To talk to Mike. I love you, Pat, but I mean, come on.
No, it's true. It's true. You've only gotten. We said that it was going to be both of us. This is not the Pat and Mike show. This is the Pat and like 12% of Mike show.
When you said 50% off, I thought you were talking about a state plan, not 50% off between the two of you.
That's good.
Yeah, bad internet connection today. I'm letting Pat run the show.
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't know if you know, but I think Mike got switches for all his girls, and they're just downstairs playing Animal Crossing left, right, and center. It's really chewing up the bandwidth.
I understand. That's like 3 in the morning when my kids are playing Fortnite, and I can hear them screaming the entire night at their friends. I really enjoy doing this with you guys. As you can tell, I know you guys are passionate about your work, and we're really passionate at the Probate Pro about the work that we do. And every day, this incredible team in 4 states are as passionate as I am about this work. And I know you're talking to me at the moment, and you mentioned me going to court. We got an incredible group of people here that if people contact us, they'll have an opportunity to experience it. So I really value and appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to talk to you. I love the fact that we're doing this and educating people more about a subject that we all care deeply about.
Well, and Darren, honest to God, you know, if you were not on the same page with us, we wouldn't be talking to you. I mean, just to be real candid on it. I mean, the fact that you have that same belief, that same philosophy, that same buy-in, that's I think why we work so well together. So thank you so much for taking your time today.
I appreciate it. Be well, everyone.
And hopefully Mike unglitches for the sign off here.
I don't think it's going to happen.
50% off. I'll say he's offering 50% off.
All right. Very good.
Well, Mike, that doesn't mean you're cutting the estate plan in half, are you? When you say 50% off, it's the price, right?
Yeah.
All right. Everybody have an amazing weekend. Enjoy the beginning of summer. We'll talk soon.
Take care. Thanks.